Iulian Chifu, you are State Councillor for the Romanian Prime Minister, advising him on numbers of matters, foreign relations, national security, strategic matters and so on. And also you set up an organization on the prevention of conflict and early warning. And from your perspective and career, how do you see the present stage within the Azerbaijan-Armenia post-conflict normalization process?
For discussing about normalization, we need to have first and foremost an agreement. I understood that to a large respect the provisions of such an agreement has been agreed. We know of a number of diplomatic efforts done by the US, done by the President of the European Council. In bilateral level, I understood that there are still some problems related to the technical aspect of demarcation of the borderline. So, according to the theory, actually, we are moving to that phase of normalization after we will have the common agreement. Hopefully, we will have it rather sooner than later, and that's also an added value because we need to have peace in the Caucasus with everything that such a peace would mean.
There are different versions of peace treaty. One version is that it's considered to be a Moscow version, that the sides will be working on the technical matters, which are more or less doable, feasible. It's delimitation and demarcation of the state border, communications, opening of communications, but the very crux of the matter, the Karabakh issue, will be left over and will be decided in the fullness of time. And there is another option which suggests that we need to establish that both states recognize each other's territorial integrity as a fundamental premise, and on the basis of that they carry on and deal with other technicalities. In your perception, which option is more likely to succeed?
We already know that it's the second option because we already know that that type of agreement has been already established between the parties, even though it's not in written, it's not in an agreement that has been ratified by the parliament and move ahead with this. So it's normal to be very clear from the state, at least at the level of the principles, where are you beginning to build. And you're beginning to build once you are recognizing the other, once you are recognizing the international treaties that have been signed by parties, and I'm just referring to Almaty, where actually each of the states, new independent states, recognized integrity, territorial integrity and sovereignty and independence of the others. It's true that in that respect we do have a problem with Russia, who in spite of that fact has waged several wars against the independent states, beginning with the Cold Wars, continuing with the Russian-Georgian War in 2008, Crimea annexation and aggression in the eastern district of Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, and now full-fledged war against Ukraine. But it doesn't mean that the signature that all the states have been put on that agreement are not respected or are not to be respected. So I think it's just a matter of accepting a reality which is grounded on very clear principles of law, of international law, pacta sunt servanda. So actually when you are signing an agreement, you should respect it in good faith. So that's the basis of what is to be built. So first, I think that, and we've already passed this matter, if I understood correctly, that is very, very much agreed by Prime Minister Pashinyan. The only thing is that we don't have this in written, and that there is still a type of turbulence inside Armenia for recognizing that step. The second part, the limitation of the border, it's also a matter that needs to be discussed at the technical level, for sure, after establishing actually what we are referring to, what Almaty is referring to in terms of territory of independent states. And the reference should be only the one that has been recorded, registered at the moment where 31st of December 1991 the Soviet Union sees its existence, because it's natural, comes with any type of interpretation, but it's subject to political negotiations, that part, in that framework, And for sure, the delimitation is a technical issue that will come afterwards, taking in consideration also the situation on the ground. It has been made several times, numerous times, by any state who disappeared, who disintegrated. Czechs and Slovakia, Serbia and Montenegro, in the former Yugoslavia, in the post-Soviet space. So it shouldn't be, discovering the atomic bomb.
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan on numerous occasions said that we already recognized independence, territorial integrity of Azerbaijan back in 1991, even in 2007, when we agreed for a new referendum to be held in the former Nagorno-Karabakh, which meant that initial referendum was not legal, and at that point Armenian government recognized the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. But also it's very quite interesting about Almaty declaration, because Azerbaijan puts emphasis on the territorial integrity coming from that particular point, whereas Armenians are talking about delimitation and demarcation, in particular in the light of the recent border escalations. So do you think that there is a massive room for constructive ambiguity when the sides will be interpreting that particular point?
It's a matter of political will. If you want to solve it, you have all the means on the table, and I suppose that enough is enough. We should move away. You know, that's a principle in management as well. When you have a problem, just solve it in such a way that you can move. And I can give you an example. For instance, the demarcation of the exclusive economic zone. You know that between Romania and Ukraine, because it's the successor of the Treaty of the Soviet Union, we have had an important difference. And we established in '97 to solve it at the International Court of Justice. We solved it, and we take profit, both of us, because if we were looking at some resources, gas as a fact, that couldn't be attained, now each of the parties are able to exploit and explore and exploit its share. So we gain, and moreover, we passed by that very issue that were divisive, and now we can build up on our relation without having that in hand. So that could be an example how solving an issue of contentions can move ahead things and can move us step forward to solution in very important things. But once again, I think that 30 years later it's already enough. And I think that from this point of view, even the international community has already enough about what is happening in the Caucasus. We already have a new war in the mid of the 21st century with the war of aggression of Russia in Ukraine, and I think it's already too much to come back and to wage old differences.
And my last question is going to be about this term post-conflict normalization, which assumes that the conflict is over and there are many other issues we need to deliver. And from the Azerbaijani perspective, that there was a root cause of this conflict, which was territorial dispute over the former Nagorno-Karabakh, and Azerbaijani president made abundantly clear that it's no longer the case. Status is over. We are not discussing it. We're discussing issues falling under the rubric of interstate normalization. And neither under Brussels format or Moscow format, this issue is not discussed. Could we interpret that when we say that we are already in the stage of post-conflict normalization, we are referring to that removal of the root cause?
It's a way of interpreting, but I will put more emphasis on a different aspect which could be considered. Actually, on the statement and on the stage that, on the definition that the sovereign state made on the conflict. So actually, post-conflict means that you don't have a conflict, and as long as you assume that it's no longer a conflict, for sure we have to refer to that particular moment. It doesn't mean that in time maybe we will have some surprises. Mm-hmm. As long as there are no surprises, we can refer to this, but technically we are not there. We don't have an agreement, as I was telling you. since we don't have an agreement between the parties, former parties, we do have still a problem.
Friction points.
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.